Now, recently, Kentucky had an election for the governor, and it turns out that a very right-wing Tea Partier governor was elected. And this is Governor Matt Bevin. And some of his first acts in getting elected as governor was actually to take the state backwards. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, he did two different things during his first couple of weeks as governor. He had two executive orders. One would be to strip 140,000 people of voting rights. I am, of course, speaking of felons, people who were convicted of a crime but had actually served their time and had gotten their right to vote back. Matt Bevin said, nah, I don't think so. You're going to permanently lose your right to vote because I say so, because I actually don't want you voting. And I think Progress had this to say about the people who are disenfranchised. Those impacted are overwhelmingly African American and lower income, but had already completed their felony sentences but remained permanently disenfranchised. The order excluded those convicted of violent crimes, sex crimes, bribery, or treason. Bevin's move Tuesday night goes against the promises he made during the campaign to keep the restoration of voting rights in place. He even told reporters in November that he would stand up to his own party on the issue and convince them it was the right things to do. Thanks to his order, tens of thousands of Kentuckians will not only lose the opportunity to regain their voting rights, but they will also be permanently unable to serve on a jury, run for office, or obtain a vocational license. Now, why would he do this? Well, he says that's an issue that must be addressed through the legislature and by the will of the people. Well, first of all, and I've said this before, your rights, your civil rights, shouldn't be left up to the majority. Who's going to vote for a felon to get their voting rights back? Well, a lot of people have a very negative view of felons because they went to prison. I mean, we're a very harsh culture when it comes to punishment. Now, oftentimes, even after you serve your time, we continue to punish people. It's harder for felons to get a job. It's harder for them to vote, if they can vote at all. It's harder for them to reintegrate into society. How do you expect them to reintegrate when you take away their rights? It seems nonsensical. Now he sort of skates away from the issue and advocates it by saying, well, it's got to be the will of the people. Well, once again, he's going to vote for a felon to get their rights back. A lot of people won't, especially in Kentucky. So, looks like it's a place where you're going to see a lot of people kicked off the voting rolls, even when they've served their time. It's of my, opinion, that if you serve your time, you should get your rights back. Even when it comes to owning a firearm, unless it's, of course, it's a violent crime, then I would be okay with saying, okay, well, maybe you shouldn't have guns in the home. Or maybe, I don't know, guns in the home for 10 years. Something like that. I don't know. I'm not in charge, but those are just my ideas. But voting rights, come on, man. That's a fundamental right for democracy. And punishing somebody after they've served their time. I'm not saying like while they're in prison they should be able to vote. I'm saying that once they get out, once they're done, once they've served their time, they should be able to get back into society and do all the things that they were able to do before. You don't punish people afterwards, after they've already served their punishment. It's punishment on top of punishment. That's not right. That's not what we should do here in America. Besides, prison isn't supposed to be about punishment anyway. It's supposed to be about rehabilitation, getting them ready to go back into society. Well, how does it serve them when society continues to punish them afterwards? So this is a huge, huge problem. This is a huge problem to me. Not a good not a good executive order. Not good. I don't agree with it at all. Now, the other thing that what he had done in an executive order is that he reversed former Governor Beshear's move to raise the state minimum wage for government workers and contractors to $10.10 an hour, bringing it back in line with the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour. So it's essentially what he's done is that he's taken 800 state workers who have already gotten a pay increase. Well, actually, the 800 workers who have already gotten the raises will be able to keep them. But anybody hiring in afterwards? Nope. You have to start at this lower pay rate, $7.25 an hour. Wow. Now, in the order, Bevin hinted that he would prefer to have no minimum wage at all. Quote, wage rates ideally would be established by the demands of the labor market instead of being set by the government. Oh boy. So, yeah. The thing about that is, if it's left to the companies to dictate the minimum wage, they would pay you less than the minimum wage. It's always like, it's what Chris Rock had said before. Paying somebody minimum wage is essentially saying like, hey, man, I would pay you lower, but I'm not allowed to. It's almost the same thing. Now, there was another decision, another executive order related to Kim Davis. He used his new executive power to grant the wish of Kim Davis to remove all clerk names from marriage licenses to accommodate religious objections to gay marriage. Though all gay and straight couples retain the right to marry, LGBT rights groups in the state lament the governor's move. It's a clear signal to Kim Davis and her camp that if you object to doing portions of your job, even if you're an elected official, the executive branch will give you an out. And that's according to Chris Hartman with the Fairness Campaign. So there you go. If you're a felon, you lose all your rights. Lose your rights to vote. If you're a state worker and you want to work for the government and actually get paid fairly, you don't get that either. You don't get the minimum. You don't get a better minimum wage. You get the lower minimum wage. You get the federal. And if you're Kim Davis and want to ignore parts of your job, that's cool. Boy, the Bevin administration is really getting off to a great start. So things are bad in Kentucky, and now that Bevin's in control, they're probably going to get worse. So there you go, Republican Tea Party governance in action.